The sound of shattering glass echoed through the silent top-floor office, followed by the slow spill of water creeping across the CEO's table, straight toward the glowing laptop screen. And standing frozen beside it was the janitor, a single father already hanging by a thread, his trembling hand still clutching the half-crushed plastic bottle he had dropped. In that split second before the laptop sparked and died, the CEO's sharp gaze darted from the ruined device to the image on the screen, and everything she believed about this man began to change. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Soul Tales so more people can hear stories that touch the heart. For years, Armin had learned to live quietly, almost invisibly. At 42, with tired eyes and calloused hands, he had accepted the night shift janitor job at Greystone Industries not because he wanted it, but because it was the only thing available that allowed him to be home in the mornings when his 8-year-old daughter, Isa, needed him most. Her asthma required constant monitoring, frequent checkups, and expensive medicine he could barely afford. Every night before leaving for work, Armin made sure she slept peacefully, her small chest rising and falling in soft rhythm. He kissed her forehead, whispered that everything would be okay, and then walked out into a world that rarely treated him kindly. Greystone Industries was a place of polished floors, tall glass windows, and silent halls. People in tailored suits moved like they owned time itself. Armin moved like he borrowed it. He cleaned offices, emptied trash cans, wiped down desks, and prayed nobody would notice him. Because every time someone did, it usually meant trouble. His supervisor already had him on edge for being 5 minutes late once. He had been helping Isa through a coughing episode that morning. Warnings and threats hovered over his job like shadows. Tonight, exhaustion weighed heavily on him. Isa's condition had worsened in the past week, and the doctor had warned him she needed a new inhaler and tests he could not afford. Her lungs were struggling. She had trouble breathing even when sitting still, and sometimes she pressed her small hand against her chest, asking, "Baba, why does it hurt?" Armin carried that question with him everywhere. As he worked his way through the top floor, he paused outside the glass-walled office of the CEO, Alina Gray. People described her as brilliant but cold, a woman with sharp focus and little patience. Her late-night work habits meant her office light stayed on long after everyone else left. But tonight, it was empty. The door was slightly open, and the laptop screen glowed on her desk, illuminating the room. Armin stepped inside, heart pounding, because even being in her office felt dangerous. But he had a job to do. He cleaned silently, carefully, knowing one mistake could cost him everything. He placed a stack of files back on the shelf, wiped fingerprints from the glass table, and then reached for his water bottle on the cart. That was when his fingers slipped. The bottle hit the edge of the table. It bounced. The cap burst open. And water streamed forward, spreading rapidly toward the CEO's laptop before he could stop it. Panic ripped through him. He lunged forward, grabbing tissues, trying to wipe the water away, but it was too late. The screen flickered, sparked, and went dark. Armin's breath caught in his throat. He felt his knees weaken. Behind him, the click of heels echoed. Alina Gray stood in the doorway, eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. The ruined laptop. The water. The janitor shaking like a leaf. Her gaze hardened like cold steel. Armin couldn't speak. His mind raced with the consequences. He would lose his job. He had no savings. No backup. He couldn't afford Isa's treatment as it was. Losing his job meant losing everything. Failure wrapped around him like a tightening chain. But then Alina stepped closer. Her expression shifted, not because of the water, but because of what had been on the laptop screen before it died. It was a photograph. A little girl, sleeping in a hospital bed, wearing an oxygen mask. Next to her, a tired father holding her tiny hand. The photo was dated 2 years back. It was Isa. And it had been stored in her company's database, part of an employee assistance program he once applied for when her condition had nearly claimed her life. He had been denied, resources were limited, they said. But the image remained in the system. Alina stared at the frozen pieces of the screen, almost as if the image were still there. Something in her face softened. Something in her eyes changed. Armin kept apologizing, his voice shaking, though she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied his trembling hands, the faded name tag on his uniform, the exhaustion carved into his features. Then she quietly asked him to step into her office with her, something no one had ever heard her say to a janitor. He followed reluctantly, expecting punishment, humiliation, or a harsh lecture. But Alina remained silent for a long moment, looking as if she were piecing something together in her mind. She asked gently about the girl in the photograph, and Armin hesitated before telling the truth. He explained how Isa was the center of his world, how he worked nights and cared for her during the day, how the medical bills grew faster than he could handle, how some days she couldn't breathe without help. His voice broke. And when it did, he lowered his head, ashamed of his own tears. Alina listened quietly. Her usually composed expression trembled at the edges. She had lost her own father young and had spent her life building a wall of independence around herself. Something about this man's quiet suffering cracked that wall open. But Armin didn't know that. All he knew was that by morning, he would probably have no job. Instead, something unexpected happened. Alina told him she had been reviewing the old employee assistance archives, looking for cases where the company might have failed people. His application was one of them. It had slipped through due to a policy loophole that she had recently discovered, and was fighting to correct. The fact that the photo appeared on the screen just before the accident, she believed, wasn't coincidence. It was a reminder of someone the system had neglected. But Armin, overwhelmed by guilt, insisted he would pay for the laptop. He begged her not to fire him. He promised he would do anything, work double shifts, clean every office twice. She surprised him again by saying softly, "I'm not firing you." Armin couldn't believe it. His legs went weak, and he held onto a chair to steady himself. She asked him to go home early that night and take care of his daughter. He nodded, barely able to speak. When he reached his small apartment, he found Isa awake, coughing, her small body curled in discomfort. He spent the rest of the night holding her, praying that tomorrow would bring even a sliver of hope. The next morning, Alina called him into her office.